A confident Trey Lance speaking at Super Bowl 57 about his 2023 season, but will he even get a true opportunity to win that quarterback job? And more on Brock Purdy's surgery coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is what we do. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Lots of juicy quotes, Croc, happening at the Super Bowl, and a number of things being discussed. I want to start, though, with Trey Lance. And I really liked his conversation with Rich Eisen talking about 2023, talking about some of the difficulties he's gone through this season and so far in his NFL career. And, had really good things to say. And it's a good reminder because we hadn't heard a lot from Trey Lance this year because of the injury and because of how the season went and everything was Jimmy. And then all of a sudden it was back. It was Brock Purdy out of nowhere. Right. And of course, more on Brock Purdy in a second, some quotes about him and from him. But when it comes to Trey Lance, I liked the confidence he came out with in this interview, talking about 2023 and talking about how he's going to bring it to Fred Warner in practice, like calling him out by name, and I was like, okay, I like this, a little fire in him. And it really felt like, because like Trey Lance, ever since he showed up, like, he was a really nice guy and a good dude and super talented and everything. But there was, it was very, small town, small college, aw shucks sort of a vibe around him. And I think he needs to get a little pissed off, maybe. I think that's going to be good for him to come in with some confidence and ready to fight for that job. I think that's what he needs.
Yeah, and for any competitor, right? And that's what he is. I like it, or at least the thing I took away from it, or one of the main things was, I just want to be able to compete. All right. Nothing's going to be handed to me. He's reading the room extremely well. Hey, I'd be a fool to think that they're just going to hand me something after how Brock Purdy played. So, I mean, we know Brock Purdy played well. He knows it. Everybody in this chat right now, they know it. So that's obvious. But for him is, can I just get an opportunity? And for any player, whether it's him or anyone else, that's all you want. Can I have an opportunity to win it back? And from that standpoint, that's on him. So it is a good opportunity. You talked about the confidence. Well, he doesn't have much to lose because right now you're the one that has to fight to take the job away from Brock Purdy.
Yeah, and as Lee points out, first of all, Lee asked, is this one live? Yes, this is live. This live episode, if you are watching us on YouTube right now, at this very moment live, then it is live. If you're watching it later, it will no longer be live. If you're listening on the audio only podcast, it is not live for you. But for you right now in the chat, Lee, yes, it is live. And he says he was 20 in the NFL. And yeah, and we saw Alex Smith go through the exact same thing, right? A redshirt sophomore, 20 years old, coming into the league, and he was just not ready to be that guy to start his NFL career. And I think we've seen that replay with Trey Lance. And it took, I mean, how many years did it take Alex Smith, and Trey Lance doesn't have as long as Alex Smith got. And it was kind of surprising in some ways that Alex Smith was even allowed to stay on the 49ers long enough to become the player he was. And it took him 8 years or whatever it was to get that Pro Bowl. But Trey Lance is still so talented. And I can't wait to see what he has in store for him. And I hope he does have a true opportunity to win that job, because obviously Brock Purdy played so well, and now we're looking at the timetable with Brock Purdy's surgery. More on that in a second. And it's going to be all Trey Lance during spring practices, OTAs, mini camps, and to start training camp, it looks like, and maybe all of training camp, it'll be just Trey Lance. So if it's a competition, I don't even know how Brock Purdy can compete, and it's almost beneficial to Brock Purdy that he doesn't have to compete if that's the case, because he just gets to sit back on what he did for the 8 games that he started for the 49ers, which were so phenomenal. I don't know how Trey Lance can beat that out. So it's going to be a really interesting decision for the 49ers if Brock Purdy is cleared before the season but doesn't get any training camp.
Yeah, I think the only way that he can truly just beat him out is you have to go out there and light it up. And if he does that, you still won't beat him out. But at least there will be a competition. Now, the thing that Brock will always have working for him over Trey Lance is, like, bro, I did it over a stretch of NFL games, right? So whatever you do in practice, even if you're lighting it up and it looks great, that still doesn't say, is this going to equate to wins? Which Brock Purdy plays, it can. So I think that regardless of if it's a competition or not, I think Purdy always has that in his back pocket. Even if Purdy goes out there and he's not lighting it up, say they're practicing and maybe they're rotating with the ones or whatever it is, and Brock isn't lighting it up, well, whatever. We saw Brock Purdy in the game. And that's what I would be saying if I'm a player. So that's kind of working against Trey as well. I think he has to really light it up to the point where it's like, all right, Trey is just doing so well that we have to make this a legit competition. And then what does that look like?
If you had to make an evaluation on Trey Lance, and this is probably what a lot of teams are doing too, I don't know what it's going to look like with Trey and Brock and how this is going to go in the spring and how the 49ers value Trey, and if teams are going to come calling in trades still. And I don't know if the 49ers will be able to trade him because of, obviously, if you trade Trey Lance right now, you have no healthy quarterbacks going into the offseason. But if no matter what Trey Lance does, it's just practice and he can't outdo what Brock Purdy did in the games last year, then you might as well trade him, right? Because if you're just going to give that job to Brock Purdy anyway, no matter what Trey Lance does, in that case, you should just sign a veteran quarterback and just trade Trey Lance if he legitimately does not have a true opportunity to compete for the job. Because I think if Trey Lance has an awesome spring and camp and preseason, and you don't get to see any of Brock Purdy, I think it should be Trey Lance's job probably to start the season, even though we saw Brock Purdy play such a high level.
Yeah, that's the tough part, right? You trade him, and if I'm Trey Lance, again, talk to Kyle Shanahan, and we have talked about how transparent Kyle Shanahan is with his players. Do I have a legit opportunity to win this job? And I'm pretty sure if anybody's going to be upfront and frank with you, it's Kyle Shanahan. So I bet that question has been asked. I just want a shot. Yes, you have a shot, but you have to do X, Y, Z, and it needs to look this way. Yes, sir. And you get on it. And if Trey can do it, then there will be a competition. If he can't, now, if Kyle says, well, like he said to Jimmy Ward, you want to ride the bench, bro? Right? Like, basically, you're going to do it my way, or you're just not going to play. In the sense of, nah, we're just, you can show up, you could do all this, but Brock did it in the game, so we're going to lean on that. You can hold the spot, you can hold the seat warm for him until he's ready to throw come training camp, but you don't really have much of an opportunity, then yeah, you might as well trade me. Like that's what I would say. And that's not even being afraid of competition, but if you're just, no matter what I do, you're going to lean on the games that he played, which should outweigh what Trey does in practice, then all right, send me to an opportunity, give me an opportunity somewhere else where I can make an impact or have an opportunity to become a guy.
Right. Does he have? Is this a 1A, 1B situation where he legitimately has a shot, or is Trey just the number 2 quarterback, and when Purdy's healthy, he's going to be the guy? I mean, that's a huge question going into this offseason now. And I think
because I don't know what he can do. I don't know what he can do in practice that will outweigh what Purdy did in the games.
Right. Just based on game tape that we've seen, the limited game tape we've seen from Trey Lance, Croc, if you had to guess right now if he was going to be an NFL starter 3 years from now, would you say yes or no?
Gosh, I mean, yes, I don't know, because he's only played so many games. Like, for any quarterback, there is no way I could judge somebody off for 4 games. Now, if you say, well, judge off 4 games, limited playing in college, got hurt multiple times, then I'd be like, probably not. But I've seen the talent when he has played, so that's the hard part. Because it's like, man, if he just played 6 more games, would the game start slowing down for him? And if the game slows down for Trey Lance, now what does that look like? Because he's the one, when he's throwing the ball, he's generating the explosive plays, throwing it. Like, this isn't, this guy just schemed wide open. Oh, you did it. It's like, no, I'm making big time throws. Inconsistent, but he's making those. So if the game slows down and you get those things on top of, his ability to run for 50 yards a game. I mean, come on. That's a starting NFL quarterback.
Next, Croc. Brock Purdy talks about his upcoming surgery. We know the date now. He talks about what it could look like and potentially two options and a hybrid surgery that is now a possibility for Brock Purdy once they get in there and cut open his elbow. And some comments from teammates about the quarterback situation, about Brock Purdy, if it is his job to lose, according to George Kittle, and some other chatter from 49ers that frankly need to stop talking, in my opinion, about the Philadelphia Eagles. Next. Today's episode brought to you by Blue Nile. Valentine's Day is coming, which means romance is in the air, a little more than usual maybe for a lot of you. And I don't need to tell those of you lovebirds that are probably having dates planned for weeks on their calendar, trying to plan something big, trying to think of a really great gift to get that special someone in their life. If you haven't found that special, perfect Valentine's Day gift, BlueNile.com is the place to go, and they can help you find the perfect gift celebrating this day of romance. Or whether you're ready to pop the question, you can find jewelry as unique as she is with the modern convenience of shopping online at BlueNile.com. And their experts are always on hand to help you find just the right ring with just the right diamond shape, size, clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then get to work and handcraft that perfect piece to your specifications. Every order is insured, arrives quickly in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside, and shipping is free, and so are returns. And right now you can save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com for up to 50% off. BlueNile.com. Oh, it's always so fun to bet on the Super Bowl, and you can do such things at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, and now the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Super excited to be working with FanDuel, and you can download FanDuel now and get the Super Bowl 57 no sweat first bet. That's right. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win for new users at FanDuel. FanDuel lets you bet on everything. Of course, point spread, money line for Super Bowl 57, who will score the first touchdown, tons of prop bets. I mean, there's an entire page of just Jalen Hurts props and just Patrick Mahomes props. Who's going to score the first touchdown? Build your own parlay as well. The website is so easy to use. I love using FanDuel, and you will too. The app is safe and secure, and the website is easy to navigate and find those bets and build your own parlays and have so much fun, not just with football, but every sport out there. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, Brock Purdy. It was reported yesterday by all of the known reporters out there, Rap Sheet, Schefter, everybody, about Brock Purdy's official surgery, which curiously isn't going to happen until February 21st or February 22nd. And that's not ideal because of the 6-month timeline we've been talking about, right? So he's going to have Brock Purdy, according to Ian Rappaport, will meet with Dr. Keith Meister in Dallas on February 21st, plans to have surgery to repair the torn UCL on the 22nd, sources say. The surgery is set to be done by respected Texas Rangers baseball doc. Of course, those baseball docs do a lot more with elbows than football docs do. Will allow Purdy to make a full recovery and be ready for training camp. Which is a little weird, right, Croc? Because how do you get ready for training camp that starts at the end of July, which is 5 months from the date of this surgery, when it's supposedly a 6-month process to come back from this surgery? And then Brock Purdy himself was talking to KNBR at the Super Bowl on Thursday, and he went into a little bit more detail about this. He said there could be some question as to getting a hybrid surgery, which is reconstruction with the internal brace. So we're going into it thinking the repair with the internal brace for sure. But all the surgeons have said that that's what we're hoping to get, a 6-month recovery in and be ready for camp. And again, so that's what Brock Purdy's saying. So February 22nd, 6 months, that's August 22nd. That's already into the preseason. and the main part of training camp is over at that point. So it still would be some preseason before the regular season starts, but that's getting really close. And in fact, that might even be the last week of the preseason at that point on August 22nd. Maybe it's the week after, because there's that extra week now before the season starts in early September. So maybe you're getting a preseason game in there, and that's if it's the 6-month surgery. But there is an opportunity now that we're learning that when they open it up and they get into the surgery, if that ligament is not in good enough shape, then they might have to actually do the Tommy John style surgery, which would be a little bit more invasive and probably have a little bit longer recovery time that could be up to 9 to 12 months is what we're hearing from some doctors now for that surgery. So that's where we're at with Brock Purdy. And even though Brock Purdy himself and Ian Rappaport keep saying that he'll be ready for training camp, 6 months from February 22nd is too late for the start of training camp, Brock.
Is Kyle Shanahan cursed? Like, why can't he just have a normal quarterback situation? Like, every team is just normal, right? Like, most teams, you go into the offseason, you got your quarterback, you start OTAs, you do your mandatory mini camps, you get ready for training camp, play the preseason, your starter plays X amount of time. Like, it's a normal situation. And for the last however many years with Kyle Shanahan, it has been far from normal. I mean, this is not normal. Because right now you have George Kittle saying, and we'll get into some of these guys' comments, this is Brock Purdy's job to lose. But again, let's say Trey Lance goes out there and let's just say he's not even lighting up, but he's doing well. He's doing well. There's some explosive plays. There's some misses, whatever. There's some good throws. He's doing well. He completed 64% of his passes. You're like, oh man, he's doing solid. He's heading in the right direction. He's played through preseason. Wow, it looks good. And then, well, Brock Purdy's healthy now, so we're just going to start him week 1? Like, do you do that just because it's his job to lose? Like, this is weird. It's
after
weird.
8 games, you were just talking about how after 4 games, you can't come to any conclusions about Trey Lance. Brock Purdy's only played 4 more games than that. And it's like, well, crown him. We know exactly what he is, right?
Well, I do think you know exactly what he is.
I feel the same way. That's what's wild about this, right? To have so many unknowns about a guy, play 4 more games, and we know exactly who this guy is, right? He's going to have this elbow surgery. But you're right. Like with Kyle Shanahan and these quarterbacks, not only is it another injury, it's a weird injury that's got all these questions about timelines. And just like Jimmy last year's, when's he actually going to be ready to play and cleared and all of these things? So he should start throwing at some point in the 3 or 4 month range and then be back at some point in training camp or preseason, it looks like, as long as there's not any complications there. So that's the latest on the surgery and the recovery timeline for Brock Purdy. And then George Kittle at the Super Bowl said some good things about Trey, but he's like, he kind of said what you said, Carl. He's like, hey, we just kind of don't know yet. We haven't seen enough of, unfortunately.
He says it's not fair. Yeah, he said it's not fair. It sucks for him.
Right. He says it's not fair to Trey, but he hasn't had the opportunity yet. And then that it's Purdy's job to lose
with how Purdy played. And I think that is very fair. I see some fans like, oh, you can't. And it's like, dude, I think what he said is very fair. He acknowledged Trey Lance and the limited time. Again, 4 starts so far. And, 2 years in. It's not like it's been so long, right? We're not talking about 3 years in, but 2 years in, 4 starts. All right. Injury, Jimmy Garoppolo, and we got to win. All these different scenarios that kind of made it to where you're not going to start right now. And, whatever the case, right? And then Brock Purdy comes in and he does play well. And I think just based on that, it's like, regardless, it's like, yeah, like this has to be his job to lose. It has to be. But it's just weird because although it's his job to lose, I feel like you say that knowing, hey, man, Brock Purdy, he's ready to go. Offseason's coming. There might be somewhat of a competition when Trey Lance is ready, but it's Brock Purdy's job to lose. Well, Brock Purdy's not even going to be out there.
Right. Yeah. You can't lose the job if you can't even compete for the job if you're not going to be practicing.
This is weird, man. The more I think about it, the weirder it is.
Right. Which means you might have to make a decision based on, okay, we saw Trey all off season and now no practice time for Brock Purdy. Do we just hand him the job? And if you're honest with yourself right now, like John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, Brian Greasy need to get in a room and talk about this. And if their answer is more than likely, if that scenario played out and we would hand the job back to Brock Purdy,
you trade Trey,
then there's no point in Trey competing because there's no competition. If it really is that far gone, where it's that far down the line with Brock Purdy that it is his job. It's his job to lose, because he might not have an opportunity to lose it this offseason.
Right.
Lee brings up an interesting point that is kind of a scary point. Okay, losing another defensive coordinator for the 49ers. What if the defense regresses? Do you need a more dynamic quarterback than Brock Purdy? What if the offensive line gets a little bit worse? And what if the defense is not quite the number one defense in the NFL anymore, right? And is Brock Purdy that guy that is just going to drive the truck? Is he going to lead you to the promised land? Is he that type of talented quarterback? So basically, my question would be, should 49ers fans be rooting for Trey Lance to win the job? Because that means it raises their ceiling.
Well, it does. I think you 100% should be rooting for him to win it. And because if he wins it, again, outright, then that means he's playing at a higher level than Brock Purdy, which you know is good. So if Trey wins it, like, that is good for the team. As far as, dynamic, what do you mean by that a little bit? Because if you're just talking about like a more dynamic runner, I think Trey has moments when he's getting downhill of being a little bit, okay, I could pick up 12, 15 yards. When he makes his decision right now to run like he did that first play against the Arizona Cardinals, right? He, boom, takes off 15 yards. He can do those things, but I don't think he's like more agile in the pocket.
Yeah, and did you hear?
It kind of reminded me of Russell Wilson versus Colin Kaepernick, right? Remember, like Colin Kaepernick, first of all, when I say Colin Kaepernick and Russell Wilson, I'm not saying Kaepernick he was outrunning entire defenses. Like, Trey's not doing that. So I don't mean it from that standpoint. But in the pocket, Cap wasn't one to just make guys miss in the pocket, right? And Trey, I think he makes guys miss a little bit better than Cap in the pocket, but you won't mistake him for Russell Wilson. Where I think Purdy, who, again, not as athletic as prime Russell Wilson, but he has more elusiveness in the pocket to make guys miss and be able to kind of create in that way. So if you're saying dynamic based on that, I would say, well, I think that might favor Purdy. But if you're just saying your arm creates the explosive plays, that would definitely favor Lance.
Yes. Yeah, I would totally agree there. It's kind of feet versus legs with those two guys. And it definitely plays and looks a little bit different. And Purdy, for not being fast, has a lot of functional athleticism,
yes,
especially when it's in the pocket. Did you hear Tim Kawakami talking about how he thought that the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan were maybe a little disappointed with the athleticism that they ended up with Trey Lance? Like they might have thought he was a more dynamic runner based on their evaluations than what they got.
I don't know. I mean, I thought he ran well. Maybe if you're saying that, a step, you need him to be a step faster, maybe. But I think, I'll say this. I don't think he's a design play runner type guy. I think if you're saying, hey, I want this guy to be able to make those plays off script and utilize his legs, I think he does that very well. Like, that's the strength in him running the ball.
Right.
It's the play action. Oh, it's not there. I can take off and pick up 13 yards for a first down on third down like he did against Chicago. Or 4th and 10 against Seattle, his first time getting in, and he makes several guys miss in the pocket, takes off and gets a first down on 4th and 10, right? Like, he can do those things. So if that's the athleticism you're looking for, he has that. But if you're saying, I want him to be Lamar Jackson, he's not. He ain't close to that. Or right. Cam Newton or anything like that. He's not that.
Right. Yeah. And that's, that's on them if they misevaluated him, because that was pretty clear coming out that there was a different level of speed between Justin Fields and Trey Lance. If they thought Trey Lance was going to be that because he's running around guys at the 1AA level, then that's on them of over evaluating what his athleticism was going to be. I thought the pick was Lance because of what they thought he was going to be as a pocket passer, right, and you have athleticism on top of that. Right. And again, that's another evaluation they've had to have had already. And they've seen him for a couple of years. If they don't believe he's going to be that, I don't want to see this zone read stuff with Trey Lance as the main part of the offense. Right. I don't want to see him carrying the ball 16 times a game if he does win the starting job, because I don't think that maximizes what he is. I don't think it maximizes what the 49ers offense could be with the quarterback. So again, if that's one of the answers as well, that when they're honest with themselves this offseason, then maybe trading him away and just giving the job to Purdy is the right move.
All right. But they're in that weird situation because, Purdy's not even
healthy.
So.
That's right. Okay, next, we're seeing some NFL honors awards being handed out too in real time right now. So we'll talk about some of those and some 49ers that are winning awards and a little bit more about some of the comments that have been made at Super Bowl week by some 49ers players next. Today's episode brought to you by TurboTax. Go to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Meet with an expert who will do them for you. And I know taxes are super annoying. I hate doing taxes. Sometimes you're excited about it, though, because you're going to get a little something back. And sometimes it's just something that hangs over your head, until April when it's time to file. So don't let that happen to you. Let TurboTax do your taxes. TurboTax experts can relieve you from the stress of taxes and file for you so you can do not taxes. Show your eyes things that are not taxes. Unpack a moving box of not taxes. Taste not taxes. You get the idea. With TurboTax, an expert will do your taxes from start to finish, ensuring your taxes are done right, guaranteed, so you can go relax. Feels good to be done with your taxes, doesn't it? Go to TurboTax and don't do your taxes. Visit TurboTax.com to learn more. Intuit TurboTax, full service products only. Video meeting while expert does your taxes required. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right. I want to move into some of the NFL honors that are happening right now, Croc, but a couple more bits from some comments that are being made at the Super Bowl. One interesting one was Deebo Samuel talking about Kyle Shanahan. And on one hand, he said he loves Kyle Shanahan, that Kyle Shanahan's a collaborator and comes to the players about all these different decisions that are made. And then he also said at one point in his career, he had to wear a visor because he didn't want Kyle to see the stuff he was saying about him because he was riding him so dang hard. So I thought that was funny. He's like, tough love turned out to be a really good relationship between Deebo and Kyle.
So I heard it two different ways, and it kind of elaborated on that as well. And because there was one clip floating around, I think maybe Grant Cohn posted it, and it kind of stopped right there after the part where he said, Kyle goes over everything with us. Mm-hmm. But as he kind of went going, it almost felt like, is their relationship almost too close? Because there is like this fine line. Like you have your coach, you have the players, things like that. But it almost looks, it felt like it almost crosses that a little bit. Like, hey, yeah, he calls me, every couple of days. We talk on the phone. And I mean, I've heard of player coaches, but that I haven't heard of that before. Now, if that's what it takes to get Deebo going, and maybe he does that with Deebo because he knows, oh, well, I got to call Deebo more often, make sure he's plugged in. Maybe he just goes about it with him. But I was like, hey, that's a bit much. I've never heard of that before.
When it comes to the comments and quotes that we're getting out of the Super Bowl from 49ers players, one thing that I think we need to stop seeing is them talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just starting to be a really bad look. And it comes off as really salty by the 49ers. And I know Deebo said, I don't remember what the exact quote was from Deebo. He said, I'm not salty, but basically we would put it to him, Brandon Ayuk was on with our guy, Brad Graham, earlier this week. And that was really cool to see that interview. But he was like talking about that defense getting exposed. I mean, that's the defense that knocked out your quarterback. I mean, they got to your quarterback enough times to knock out two different guys. So you got to give him credit, at least for that part of it, right? It wasn't like an accident. Brock Purdy didn't step in a gopher hole and get hurt. He got hit by the Philadelphia Eagles defense. And then the worst one of all I saw today, and it was just before we came on the air here. And this is the worst one of them all. And Robbie Gould's got to just really got to stop talking, because he said, quote, if you make Jalen Hurts play quarterback, you're probably going to have a pretty solid day on defense. He's a kicker. And I love Robbie Gould. He's been an awesome kicker for the 49ers. But you don't want to hear that from a kicker. And just the quote itself is cringy and terrible. And like, it's not even like, look, well, it's one thing to say, we had a good game plan, we thought, with Jalen Hurts and keeping him in the pocket and trying to make him do the thing. But if you make Jalen Hurts play quarterback, it's like, come on, Robbie, you got to be smarter than that than to put a quote like that out there.
Yeah. So there's two things here. One, like the players are going to be very confident. They're going to be confident in their abilities and how they win games, right? So they feel like, hey, we're at our full capacity. We got something for them. Now, obviously you weren't, and it is what it is. But the bigger issue is they keep getting asked the question. So as long as whoever's interviewing them and all these people continue to ask them, they're going to keep answering it that same way. Unless they just say, you know what, I'm not answering that. And they probably don't want to come off as an a-hole. So it's like, yeah, man, we had a lot of confidence in our game plan, what we were going to do, how we were going to attack them. We saw it, and our quarterbacks got knocked out, and we couldn't do it. So it's tough because I get it where they're coming. Now, Robbie Gould, that's a whole different thing. When you start talking about make Hurts throw the ball, be a quarterback, that's different. Like, do you even watch film on, as a kicker? Like, do you even watch the film? Are you in the defensive meetings?
Yeah,
but
you don't even have to defend him, right? And it's one thing because like there's some real talk happening behind the scenes. DeMeco Ryans might have said that exact thing to his team in meetings. Like, we're going to go make him play quarterback, right? We're going to rush lanes. We're going to keep him in the pocket. We think we can beat him this way, right? But it's another thing to say that out in public. And that's where the stupid part of it is.
Well, it's another thing when you don't even have any hand in any of this.
Yeah.
Like, you're the kicker. Like, you're not even Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw or one of those guys. So, like, when Deebo says it and Ayuk, okay, it's like, I get it. Right. And if you don't want them answering it like that, don't ask them. But the Robbie Gould thing is like, what?
All right, let's go to the NFL honors that are ongoing right now live as we are live here on YouTube. And thanks everybody for jumping in on this live. Always a lot of fun. Everyone's hyped up in the chat here. Congratulations to multiple 49ers, including defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans, who's assistant coach of the year in 2022. Awesome. Well deserved. There you go. Yes. Absolutely well deserved for DeMeco Ryans. And I think something that we knew was going to happen was, as Pharrell put in the chat here, congratulations to Nick Bosa for Defensive Player of the Year. We've actually got a voting breakdown here from Thomas in real time. Nick Bosa, 46 first place votes. Second place, a distant second place, was Hassan Reddick, who got 2 first place votes for Defensive Player of the Year. Quinnen Williams and Chris Jones each got 1 first place vote. None for Micah Parsons, surprisingly.
I just screenshot that, so I'm going straight to the group chat and asking why Parsons didn't get any first place votes.
I'm sure your Cowboys loving brother is gonna like that question quite a bit. Looks like Justin Jefferson, Offensive Player of the Year, and I don't expect Brock Purdy to win win Offensive Rookie of the Year just because he didn't play enough. But congratulations to DeMeco Ryans and Nick Bosa for those awards. Fantastic stuff there. Here we go. Garrett Wilson, Offensive Rookie of the Year. So there you go. And that would have been my vote too, was Garrett Wilson out of the finalists. So I think you got it right. I think the voters got it right this year. So good job, everybody.
And I mean, his quarterback situation was trash.
Oh, well, yeah, the numbers he put up with what they did at quarterback, that's even more impressive. You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think, trash.
So it's looking like Purdy did get some votes, though, for Offensive Rookie of the Year. So there's that.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then D-Roy was Sauce Gardner. Croc, I'm sure you can't argue with that one, right?
You get now, obviously, when you have, a sorry team, say your young guys are playing, but, they play on any team. They play on the Niners. They play on any team. They're really good. But to do what they did, man, with that situation, and now you got 2 guys that you drafted in the first round be the offense and defense. Like, has that happened? Was it the Saints? I think the Saints with Kamara and Lattimore.
Oh, yeah, the Saints might have done it. Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't even know where I came up with that at, but
dude, that's great knowledge there, Croc. Well done.
Eric Crocker, always around the football at that time, made a great catch.
All right. Congratulations to everybody at NFL Honors, specifically those 49ers, like DeMeco Ryans, now head coach of the Houston Texans. By the way, the guy, I don't have his name. Is it Chad Smith? I believe is his name. He's chief of staff is his name. He was hired away from the 49ers now by DeMeco Ryans. He's now the chief of staff, the same job title for the Houston Texans. He's the guy that holds the boombox when the 49ers leave the locker room. Big loss to the 49ers organization in the boombox holder, chief of staff that is now going to do the same with the Houston Texans. Can they steal the Niners vibe?
Maybe he just wanted to live in H-Town. Because, why? It's like, I'm tired of holding the boombox for Deebo. Because I feel like, first of all, you can't. Now, again, I don't know exactly what he does outside of holding the boombox. He does something else.
He's got another job, I think. But chief of staff, I'm not sure exactly what that does. It's a different job in other organizations in other fields.
No state taxes in Texas.
Yeah, so maybe a little raise there. Yeah, ends up with a little bit more money in his paycheck at the end of the week. Does he take the boombox with him, though? Is it like you can't steal that from the 49ers, right? Unless it was him that started the whole thing, and that was his thing, and the guys just started following him out as he rolled with the boombox.
Well, I will say this: if he needs a new one, Bump Box, which is what that boombox is, the founders, the creators from, guess where they're from?
I'm gonna guess they're from the 209 Croc.
209. Let's go. Stockton, California in the house. So I can make a phone call, man. Get them a Bump Box out there in Houston.
There we go. All right. Fantastic stuff. Or if he takes that one, you get the 49ers a new one.
No, it's usually customized with the logo and all the color scheme. Like Bump Box does a great job of that.
Fantastic stuff. Thanks everybody for jumping in on the live. If you're listening, maybe on your ride to work Friday morning, we appreciate you all the same. Thanks everybody for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every single day. Croc and I back Monday right here, Locked On 49ers.